Hey guys, this is Phil Galfond for Run At Once. For those of you who have been following my posts over at runatonce.eu, you know that I've shared details of our policies, some of our features. I've shared updates as we've gone. I've explained in depth, why we're doing certain things, why we're doing others. I've shared some screenshots, some designs. Today I thought it'd be fun to actually show you the software and get some actual play in and update you about where we're at, where we're heading. So without further ado, let's just start by playing some poker. I'm going to start by buying into 2K No Limit, and you'll see here that the first time you buy in on a new account, you'll get this onboarding where we let you pick your avatar and explain a little bit about how the avatars work. So it starts here. You get to choose either by randomizing or going in here and picking yourself. As you can see, we actually just got this in, and there are only a few avatars in the system. We'll just go with this guy, and it'll tell me a little bit about how my identity works. And you guys have heard me talk about this or see me write about it, both in my posts and in the forums. And then here's where we explain our dynamic avatars. A little bit of information about what they mean. For more specific details, you can click Learn More down here. But then you can go ahead and play whenever you're ready. And it'll take you to our buy-in modal, which I've shared a design with you guys before on. For 2K No Limit, the buy-in is 2K Euro. We allow 100 big blind buy-ins only, and I've talked about this in depth. I'll spare you the spiel once again. You'll notice that we have our 6-table cap already implemented that you guys voted on. We just recently changed that from the 4 that we were testing with before. So if I try to go over 6, it won't let me. And the total buy-in scales with the number of tables, so I know how much is coming out of my account. But then, yeah, we go ahead and buy in. So here we are. We are waiting for the big blind. And as we wait, I'll talk a little bit about some of the changes that we made recently. We have one developer specifically on interface improvements, based mostly on user feedback, of course, based on, some of the voting that you guys did, although those are kind of simpler fixes, the things that you guys voted on. So the one thing that's gone in most recently is we increased the avatar sizes just a few days ago to 25% increase over what they were before. The reason for this was we wanted to make expressions more visible. For the dynamic avatars, it's something that our beta testers, one of the first things they pointed out to us, or one of the things they pointed out most consistently, was they just wanted to see those more readily. They also wanted to see color marking, which I haven't shared with you yet, more readily. So you'll notice that, I don't know, we thought that given that we have these avatars, why make just like a little note tag that you color when we can just make it more fun and change their shirt color. So that's what we decided to do. These actual colors are going to change largely based on your votes. The new colors haven't been implemented yet. I guess we get to play a hand right away. Another thing that we changed based on beta feedback was just these card pips. They probably look normal to you, and they look normal to me too. We had what I thought was kind of a cool design a while ago, with the pips in the middle being a little bit faded, which I think, like I said, looked cool, but made them slightly harder to instantly identify. Of course, you could always tell what cards they were, but really the majority of the beta feedback we've received so far has been positive, and also has been, just slight improvements in areas where people want instant information. And, that makes perfect sense to me as a poker player. As we'll make a nitty fold here, I guess. But yeah, we actually are improving the player marking system a little bit right now. You can definitely still see these colors, but we want to make them even more visible. So we've got something, the designs are already done. That'll be implemented soon. And what else? We have, I folded too fast. The buttons are going to be changing. We're going to make them more responsive. One thing that I've kind of always advocated for is, I like when the buttons feel like they're reacting to me, so I know that the software is hearing me. And I don't know, if you guys play a lot of poker, you've probably been on some sites that, I don't know, the button doesn't always work when you click it, and it makes me feel a lot more calm when I know that the buttons are reacting. So here we just have this, when you're hovering, it turns red. We're going to improve that and make both the hover state and click state just, more responsive. But really, we've made some bet slider and bet typing improvements as well, and we may continue to. But I think that's the majority of, what we've done based on user feedback so far. And actually, I want to talk more about just the beta tests we have done, the beta tests we will do, and our plans and our status right now. So I'm actually going to time out intentionally here, sit out. You can see here another thing that we haven't talked about, which is our sit out policy. You'll notice a clock down here came up at 12 minutes. The way that it works on Run It Once is from the time you sit out on your first table, by clicking sit out all tables, you'll have 12 minutes to sit back in before you lose your seats. 12 minutes sounds a little bit long, and it is a little bit long if you're one tabling, but if you're four tabling, for example, and you click sit out next big blind all, and you sit out on the first immediately, the time it takes to sit out on the last, sometimes there's a gap there. So we did it 12 minutes from the first sit out, which is just the easier way to build it. If I were to time out like this on one table while sitting on another, I would actually get a 1 minute timer. The reason for that is there's no option to sit out this table only. There's an option to leave this table only, but you can't sit out on one table because we want to prevent table camping. We don't want, if there's a weaker player who's been playing and busts his stack or sits out for another reason, we don't want the whole table to sit out, wait for him to come back. So if you want to sit out on one table by timing out is really the only way, and you only have a minute to do it, which is something, the timeout decisions seem kind of simple, but a lot of discussion, a lot of thought goes into them. And of course, the actual time limits and really policies in general, as we go and we get more feedback and we actually see data, see how the games are playing, we can always make changes to those, and we always will be actively thinking about them. But yeah, that's our sit out policy. If I were to click on back, which I'll do in a little bit, I would be sitting back in, of course. So yeah, where we're at. A couple of months ago, we added our last feature. It was a pretty big feature that we were very excited about. We haven't shared it yet, but that'll be shared in upcoming posts. And we wanted to get that in for launch. There are some other features that we really like that are not going to be in for launch because we have to get to launch. And since that, a couple months ago, we've just been bug testing, bug fixing. As I mentioned, basically all of our developers are on bug fixing. We also have the majority of our staff, maybe not the majority, but probably the majority of our staff are doing bug testing regularly. We got a bunch of people in the Malta office doing it. We've got all of our Run It Once training guys spread out across North America, testing as well, with the exception of one or two. And yeah, we've gotten it down pretty well, I think, reporting bugs, and they've done a great job of knocking them out. We've been constantly testing internally. We have been beta testing in small groups for a little while. Our first real money hand was dealt in April. And so all of our beta tests are real money because we need to test our cashier. We need to test our rake. We're getting to a point now where, while there are still a lot of known bugs and we're working on them, they're fewer and further between. The plan was to launch this summer. And while summer is technically not over, I think actually September 22nd is the end of summer, though I didn't know that before. It's become pretty clear that we're not going to have a full public launch by September 22nd. But what we will have is, a lot of players playing for real money in our private beta. So our plan right now is we're going to invite 1,000 of you to beta test with us on September 13th. I mean, we'll invite you before then, but the test date is September 13th, which will be our largest test to date. And depending on how that goes, we'll scale up the testing, both in terms of number of players and in terms of, extended time frames, like more regular uptime, things like that. If you're not on the beta test list and you want to be a part of that test, head over to runonce.eu and get on there. I mean, we have well over 1,000 people, but we're going to pick them randomly, so you still got a shot if you haven't signed up. So yeah, that's where we're at. September 13th, we'll have this larger beta test. Hopefully all goes well. Of course, we still have some kinks that we're working out that we know about, but hopefully all goes well in terms of, players playing from countries that we might not have tried yet, players a large number of players testing, potentially players doing things that we haven't done, although at this point, I feel like we've tried everything and clicked around everywhere. But hopefully all goes well. We can scale up and we can get to launch, sooner than later. A big part of what we'll be looking for in this beta test, and a little bit actually in response to this video, is, when you do see quirks, things that we're still working on, things that need to be worked out, it'd just be great to get an impression of how it feels to play. And, I've played on a number of poker sites that are live that have bugs, that have issues, some that don't fix their issues for years and years, for whatever reason. I mean, now that I've been doing this and a part of a poker site and poker software, I can understand why some don't get fixed, because there's always, do we want to spend a month doing this, or do we want to add, in our case, do we want to add sit and goes? And sometimes, we'll have to make those tough calls, when to launch, when is it solid enough of an experience to launch, because, my default is to go towards perfectionism, and we're never going to reach perfection, or at least we're not going to reach it this year. So we have to launch with something really good that we're really proud of, but less than perfection. And then, those decisions from there, do we perfect this? Do we work out this little kink, or do we add sit and goes? Do we add this feature, this feature? Those are the decisions we'll make as we go. And a big part of it is your feedback, of course. So really excited for this beta test in a couple weeks. Really excited to hear your feedback on this video, and also in a couple weeks on that test. But yeah, that's our update. I really am sorry that I keep being wrong, essentially. So that's why this time I'm not telling you when we're going to launch. I'm telling you when we're going to test, and we are going to test, and giving you a feel for the software. I wanted you to see that, we're not sitting there doing nothing. We're a team of probably near 40 people now, working very hard, nonstop on getting this to you. And here's what we got so far. So wanted you guys to get a feel for it and kind of show you something more concrete, more real. But I'm going to sit back in, get back into the action, and talk about some of the things we haven't talked about yet. We've gotten some of the things you voted on already in. The card backs are in. The card fronts are actually the second choice of yours, which we're either going to go with these, maybe go with your first choice, or, ideally we launch with both. The option to switch your decks, but that's something that we're not going to delay launch for. We don't have a traditional chat box. It was actually, the idea was born more out of necessity, because we realized that with, I'll just YOLO again and go all in, which is my favorite way to use the chat. We realized that, to me, my name is Phil3, as you can see here, but to my opponents, it's something else. And so if we had a traditional chat and they started typing in, Bob, you're such a fish, I wouldn't realize they're talking to me. And so we didn't want there to be that confusion, especially for players that, didn't pay as much attention to our avatar and identity system, and would just be very confused. So we wanted to avoid that, so we started thinking about this. And really, what I like about a chat system like this is that it ends up being easier to interact. Like when I'm playing a bunch of tables, I don't like to go sit and type while I'm timing out on 6 of my tables. And so I think that, this ends up being fun for a number of reasons. I think people will have fun with it. Time bank, I'll talk about my time bank. So you can see here a time bank that is not active. And we wanted to make it clear when it's active versus not active. You'll see when I click on it, it engages by touching the green bar and, filling in with a color between red and yellow, depending on how much time you have left in your time bank. Then once your green bar reaches the time bank, that kind of time juice fills up your time bar once again, counts down. Now, when I end up folding this hand, my time bank will be red next time, because I'm down to like a smaller time bank. The reason we did that, well, it was important to us to make sure that it was easy to tell when the time bank was engaged. And actually, we're going to make some small improvements to this. I think it still needs some work. But the system overall is going to be, the one that we'll use. We made it so that the time bank does not auto-engage pre-flop before you've acted. The reason for that, and this more comes into play once we add MTTs, but we didn't want people to come back a minute late from an MTT break and have lost their time bank on 6 of their tables. So for that reason, we didn't want to engage right away, but actually once you've entered a pot, throughout the rest of the hand, your time bank auto-engages. So here I'll just play this hand, even though I definitely shouldn't. So I'll raise to 60, and hopefully somebody calls, or you'll see if they re-raise also. But on my next action, my time bank will auto-engage, whether it's pre-flop or post. So you won't have any kind of mistakes timing out once you've entered the pot. And that's the reasoning there. I'd like to hear, as you can see there, it auto-engages, touching the green bar. As this goes down, it'll kind of activate my time bank, and it'll fill in the bar once again. And then I am gonna just make the tight fold here. You'll notice here also when I hover over myself or somebody else, it'll say angry 14 hands over here, game face 14 hands. We're actually gonna swap those out. We went with this, but we realized that just through beta testing and testing ourselves actually internally, that even as we made the avatars larger and the expressions more clear, it's still easy to not remember what means loose aggressive, what means very loose aggressive, what means just aggressive, tight aggressive. So we're gonna actually just replace these with the actual words when you hover over them, so you'll be able to see the number of hands you played with that opponent, and then the kind of categorization, which is going to correspond to a specific stat range, which if you go to our website, you'll be able to look up exactly what that means. And having the hand data is useful too, of course, because you can tell how reliable that sample is. So like I said, there are a lot of things that we're still working on. There's always room for improvement. There always will be. And I think the one thing I need to keep telling myself, and actually other people are telling me, when we get this to the state that we're happy to launch with, it doesn't mean that we're done. And all the changes we can make over the next month, let's say before launch, we can make over the month after that, after launch, and continue to improve the software. There are actually some chip movement things that I think need some work. But yeah, for the most part, we're definitely getting there. I hope you guys feel that way by looking at the software and watching me play. I look forward to any questions you guys have, comments, of course, but anything that I maybe glossed over that you want more information on. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. This is Phil Galfond for Run It Once. Take care, guys.